see the Washington Post's very inconvenient data that they published about the temperature of Earth?
No, please tell me.
So you find the Washington Post climate study. They found that we're in a massive cooling period. If you go back, X amount of 100,000 years, and you look at like what's happening it goes in cycles, but that's what it looks like now.
Right.
Captures Earth's climate over the last 485 million years. Look at the dip we're in, and look how it's never static. It's down and up and down and up and down and up all throughout the history of the Earth, which is measurable. And it's not to say that we don't have an impact on it. We definitely do.
That's a pretty sharp increase there, but
here's the thing. Even if we didn't, but there's sharp increases in the past.
There's a couple other ones.
Look at those back. Look at 390 million years ago. Look at that giant peak. That's fucking crazy. That's straight up and down.
Yep.
It's always happened. It's not like it's static and then industrial engineering comes along and then you see this big increase. Oh boy, what are we doing to the Earth? No, it's like even if we didn't do anything, we have no control over the temperature of the Earth. And what's really terrifying, Randall Carlson talks about this all the time, is global cooling. Mm-hmm. That's what's really terrifying. When global warming happens, oh no, you got to move out of Malibu. You going to be okay?
Hey,
you got to move to the places where it used to be cold and now it's warm because humans have always been nomadic. That's the whole reason why we're not in Africa anymore.
Will fucking kill us all.
Right. So global cooling will kill everything. And we came, Randall talks about this, that we came very close at one point in human history. We came very close to losing the oxygen that's required to literally keep life.
Jamie, will you bring up my Ice Age or Ice folder? So I have an update from you from the last time I was on your podcast. Go over to the graph. It should be one of the first slides in it. That one. Go hang out right there for a second. So when I was on your show last time, Joe, I said something very specific where I said, I think this is with my exact words. I think the data might indicate that cold is more often than it's hot. And do you know what happened after that? I was going to send this to you, but I held off because you've seen enough hit pieces. So there was a hit piece done on me by Media Matters, which was funded by George Soros, and their networking of Vox and they did this hit piece on me to say that Jimmy Corsetti was on Joe Rogan spreading climate change denial and inaccurate information. The only thing, if you could bring that back up, Jamie, please. The only thing that I said wrong is that I said the data might indicate that the Earth is cold more often than hot. Excuse me, no. The data absolutely definitively shows that Earth is cold more often than it's hot. And what you're looking at here is straight out of the Utah Geological Survey. It's prestigious. It's found at the top of Google. And what you're looking at here is data from the last 450,000 years, corroborated from data taken from ice core samples from Antarctica as well as Greenland. And what it shows is that not only are we in the middle of a 3 million year old ice age, there's something called glacials and interglacials. Glacials are where it's cold and the glaciers grow. Interglacials are where things warm and the glaciers recede. What you're seeing here is 4, arguably 5 interglacial periods over just the last 450,000 years. So never mind hundreds of millions of years ago. What it shows is that the periods of cooling last 7 to 9 times longer than interglacials, which are periods of warming. And here's what the fun part. Interglacials last anywhere from 10 to 30,000 years, and our warming started 11,600 years ago, which means that we're already in the window for potential catastrophe for things to start cooling again. So when I was on your show last time and I was mentioning Elon Musk talking about ice ages being a deep, deep rabbit hole, do you remember that? He was talking about it? Well, I know what he's talking about. It's this. It means that we're already in the window where things could start cooling again, and when it does, we're in a lot of trouble. I think, and I can't speak on his behalf, I got to tell you, next time, can you just text him and ask him if he thinks it's related to pole shifts? I need to tighten up my study on this because because let me tell you something. Let me share something right now that you've never heard on this show before. You hear everyone talking about cosmic impact hypothesis. You hear people talking about sun cycles. Not a lot of people have been on here talking about pole shifts. Let me give a quick shout out to Ben Davidson of Suspicious Observers. I recommend maybe you link up with him. Nobody has researched the topic of pole shifts and sun cycles as much as him. And he brought something to my attention I had never heard before. Jamie, the very first slide that you showed was of the Gothenburg excursion. So there was a partial pole flip right in the middle. See how it dates between 13,007 and 12,003? So the Younger Dryas started 12,800 years ago. And it's right in the middle of that ballpark range. We already know it is established science that when geomagnetic pole excursions happen, it changes weather patterns on Earth as well as the ocean current. Jamie, if you want to Google, there's a space.com article titled that in 2025, some scientists are suggesting that the Earth's ocean currents may stop. Have you heard this?
No.
Okay. And nowhere in the articles do they mention anything about pole excursions. So people need to understand that we're already in the middle of a pole excursion, which is a partial pole flip, which means that things are shifting inside the Earth. It's also known that that can cause changes in ocean current. Now, most mainstream articles, let me just be fair and tell you what they'll say. They'll say that, oh, no, it's related to man-made climate change. We're changing the currents of the ocean. I don't believe that. But, yeah, hit don't allow. Don't let them take your data. Look at this. Nowhere in this article do they explain why. But here's the thing. People need to understand that the number one thing that affects weather on Earth is, of course, the sun. The second thing is ocean currents. It's the reason why England is relatively temperate.
Go back to that, Jamie.
It's the reason why England is relatively temperate is because the Gulf Stream flows up there and it keeps it relatively warm in comparison.
The way it says it here, key Atlantic current could collapse soon, impacting the entire world for centuries to come, leading climate scientists warn. So just by saying climate scientists, you're already implying at least this is the result of climate change.
Right, that's what
which further fuels this agenda that man-made climate change is the cause of all of our woes.
Right,
which is a narrative that you're consistently hearing. And again, to be real clear to someone's going to say something about this is not to dismiss pollution. This is not to dismiss our impact on the atmosphere of the Earth and what we're doing with coal plants and all the bullshit that we're doing. For sure, we're doing bad things.
Right.
Also, if we weren't, we have no control over this thing.
Right.
This thing is constantly moving, and both of those things need to be looked at the same time. The problem is this whole narrative of climate science has been adopted by these same fucking people that want Twitter pronouns. It's the same people. It's the same sort of thing. And if you have anything to say about it, if you want to talk about a swastika being an ancient symbol, now you're a Nazi. Now you're a climate denier. You're a vaccine denier. You're this, you're that. You're a Holocaust denier. It's like the same kind of stupid shit. And unfortunately with this one is uniquely tied to money. This one is uniquely tied to green agendas and the enormous amount of funding that is going towards these green agendas and people that are profiting off of spreading this narrative.
Bing,
these
bing, bing.
Philanthro-capitalists that are making hundreds of millions of dollars promoting this idea of climate change being our primary problem. And if you deny it, you're a science denier.
Yeah.
And the reason why you shouldn't listen to these people is because they're leaving out the key data involving Earth's historical climate data.
Yes.
They're not including all these other details.
Right.
And so I think people need to look at pole shifts because it's very interesting in this alternative realm that you have people that are proponents of the cosmic impact hypothesis. You have Dr. Robert Schoch with the sun cycles. You have other people talking about pole shifts. I think people should consider that all the above are correct, and let me explain why. When pole shifts happen, Earth's shields are diminished. We're in the middle of a pole shift right now. The Earth's shields are diminishing, and it's been happening since the 1800s. It's been accelerating over the last few decades. This is scientific data. The North Pole is shifting at like almost 40 miles a year, when it was half that just a decade ago. And when the Earth shields diminish, we are more susceptible to cosmic impacts because less.
40 miles a year?
Google it. This is real.
Wow.
It's
I
happening.
had no idea. I thought it was feet a year.
Now, the mainstream will say, "Don't worry, it's still another 1,000 years away." And I'm like, they actually can't prove that because we haven't been alive to document a pole shift. But what I'm trying to say is that we should consider the pole shift thing. Brother, ask Elon Musk his thoughts on this sometime.
Well, he actually just tweeted something about it recently.
What did he say?
He tweeted something about the magnetic poles.
Oh my God!
Yeah, he tweeted something about.
I think he actually retweeted the
core of the Earth.
What's his face? I forget his name, but you were just shouting.
Ben Davidson?
Ben Davidson. I'm pretty sure he retweeted Ben Davidson.
Oh, we need to find that out if that's the case. Because here's the thing.
He tweets so much though; it takes so long to
I
go
know.
through his tweets. I don't know.
He does it too much. It's less effective because I'm like, I miss stuff, and I follow him closely. Actually,
Jamie could find
there you go.
Yep.
Look at this.
Oh,
Live in a
it's Brian
thin crust
Ramon.
of solid
It's Brian,
rock
sorry.
beneath which a vast ball of molten rock, Earth's core, which generates most of our magnetic field, is 85% iron and moves independently from the surface plates, which is why the magnetic pole changes position.
I love Brian Romelli. If I'm saying his name right, we follow each other. He's a great guy. I think Elon Musk is giving a hint here because you remember how the northern lights were visible as far south as Mexico recently in the last few months?
That was from solar activity, right?
Right, but the reason why it's more visible now is because the Earth shields are diminishing. This isn't like from Bob's website. This is mainstream science. Again, Ben Davison has taught me a lot on this, and he was actually on with Alex Jones not long ago. And he really blew Alex Jones's mind. He vetted him. And so what I'm trying to say here is that, like, this is not being brought into the equation of man-made climate change at all.
Well, because of all the things we were talking about, the educators want to be the only ones that distribute the information, and they don't want to look at the full picture. They only want to look at this one thing for the greater good of all of us. It's better if you just get people to only focus on getting an electric car.
Yep.
Right.
The issue is that it's not like there's one explanation that could conceivably have caused this massive cataclysm. There's probably a lot of variables. Just like there's always been. I mean, we always like to conveniently ignore supervolcanoes. When one of those blows, the whole world's fucked. The country's dead. Everyone's fucked.
You should consider the possibility that that's related to pole shifts as well. And I could give you a point. There's one that happened. You know, I've heard you talk about before the Toba super eruption.
Yeah.
Did you know that happened at the same time of a geomagnetic pole excursion?
Oh boy. Well, it
true.
makes sense. You're having all this movement.
There's movement inside the Earth. A full pole shift is when they believe that the innermost portion of the molten within the Earth core shifts. A geomagnetic pole excursion is a partial pole flip, which they theorize is related to the outer portion of the mantle. The Earth's crust sits on top of molten everything. And when that shifts, it shifts our compasses. And it's not unreasonable to suggest that when something shifts inside the Earth, it would affect things on the surface. I touched on this in the last time I was on, but when it comes to earthquakes, as an example, some originate in the crust, which is like 28 miles at its thickest, I believe, or on average, and others originate in the molten outer portion of the mantle. Well, if something shifts inside the Earth, why wouldn't it cause issues on the surface, whether it be earthquakes or volcanic activity? And some volcanic activity involving supervolcanoes coincides with geomagnetic pole excursions. And so when I was on your show last time talking about pole shifts along with the ice ages, I was part of the same topic.